Humans can be incredibly fragile.
And where you were going?
Yet history shows us that some individuals have defied all odds to survive the impossible. Today, we're diving into extraordinary stories of people who faced accidents that seemed unsurvivable, but weren't. Whether through sheer luck, determination, or a mix of both, these individuals overcame unimaginable circumstances to live and share their incredible tales of survival. Let's explore their remarkable journeys. Evan Byers, the cautionary tale of surviving the impossible. Evan Byers was the kind of man who seemed to have it all. Wealth, charm, athleticism, he was living the dream. Born in 1880 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Evan enjoyed the life of a privileged American elite. As the chairman of a big company, he worked less out of necessity and more because it was expected of him. His life revolved around parties, sporting events, and all the trappings of early 20th century aristocratic America. But then came 1927, when a seemingly minor incident altered the trajectory of his life. While traveling by train, Byers fell from an upper berth, injuring his arm. It was an improbable survival story in itself. Had he fallen slightly differently, he might have suffered fatal head or spinal injuries. Like any affluent man of his time, he sought the latest miracle cure to alleviate his discomfort. Enter Radithor, a radioactive elixir marketed as a health tonic, manufactured by William J.A. Bailey, a self-styled doctor who was anything but. Radithor promised to restore vitality, enhance strength, and cure just about anything under the sun. What it really contained, however, were radium salts, dissolved into water and practically glowing with danger. Byers became Radithor's most devoted disciple. He consumed the stuff daily, guzzling bottle after bottle, roughly 1,400 bottles over 3 years, to be precise. At first, the effects seemed promising. He claimed it gave him a toned-up feeling, and even bragged about its benefits to his friends. But as time went on, Byers began experiencing an array of disturbing symptoms. His teeth started falling out, his jaw began deteriorating, and his once vigorous body succumbed to necrosis caused by radiation poisoning. What began as a miracle cure quickly turned into a slow-motion horror story. Byers passed away in 1932, but his grotesque and highly publicized demise became a watershed moment in public health. The U.S. government was compelled to take action against radioactive quackery, tightening regulations on patent medicines. Evan Byers, a man who sought health and vitality, became an enduring cautionary tale of blind faith and pseudoscience. A man who, despite his fortune and privilege, could not escape the devastating consequences of human folly. Vznavulovich, surviving a 10,000-meter fall. Vznavoolovich's name has become synonymous with surviving the impossible. Born on January 3, 1950, in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, Vesna led an unremarkable early life, one that hardly hinted at the extraordinary event that would later make her a household name. In 1971, she became a flight attendant for JAT Yugoslav Airlines, a job that seemed destined for adventure, but no training could have prepared her for what happened just a year later. On January 26, 1972, Vesna was assigned to JAT Flight 367, a DC-9 bound from Copenhagen to Belgrade with a stop in Zagreb. Ironically, she was never supposed to be on that flight. Another flight attendant with the same first name had been scheduled, but a scheduling mix-up brought Vesna on board instead. This small twist of fate set the stage for her survival story. Mid-flight over what is now the Czech Republic, a bomb planted in the cargo hold detonated, tearing the plane apart at an altitude of 10,000 meters. The explosion took the lives of 27 passengers and crew members instantly, but Vesna, strapped into her jump seat at the back of the aircraft, plummeted to the ground inside a section of the fuselage. Miraculously, she survived the fall, an event later confirmed by the Guinness Book of World Records as the highest fall without a parachute ever survived. How did she endure such a seemingly unsurvivable event? Several factors likely played a role. The fuselage section shielded her from immediate impact, and the thick snow in the forest where she landed may have cushioned her fall. However, her own physiology might have also contributed. Doctors speculated that her low blood pressure caused her to pass out during the fall, which reduced the likelihood of a fatal cardiac event on impact. Vesna suffered grievous injuries, a fractured skull, broken vertebrae, broken legs, and a fractured pelvis. She was left temporarily paralyzed from the waist down, but astounded doctors with her determination to recover. After months of rehabilitation, Vesna regained her ability to walk, though she bore the physical scars of the crash for the rest of her life. Vesna's survival turned her into a national hero in Yugoslavia and a figure of fascination worldwide. Yet, Despite her newfound fame, she chose a quiet life, eventually retiring from aviation. She often stated that she didn't consider herself a hero, just lucky. Still, her story is a testament to the improbable resilience of the human body and spirit, a modern miracle that defies explanation. Anna Bogenholm, 40 minutes under ice. Anna Bogenholm's survival story is nothing short of a modern-day medical miracle. Born in Sweden in 1970, Anna was a radiologist with a passion for skiing and the outdoors. Her life was one of precision and dedication, qualities that would serve her well in what became one of the most astonishing survival stories in history. On May 20th, 1999, Anna was skiing with friends in the Kjolen Mountains of Norway. As an experienced skier, she had no problem navigating slopes and icy terrains. But on this particular day, her confidence led her off course. Losing control during a downhill stretch, Anna fell headfirst into a frozen stream, breaking through the ice and becoming trapped beneath it. With freezing water rushing around her, she was pinned under a thick layer of ice, unable to free herself. Her friends quickly called for help and tried to rescue her, but Anna remained submerged for an unimaginable 40 minutes. In that time, her body temperature dropped to a record-breaking 13.7 degrees, one of the lowest ever recorded in a human being. By the time rescuers pulled her from the water, Anna had no pulse, no heartbeat, and no signs of life. Clinically, she was not alive. What happened next was an extraordinary combination of medical innovation and sheer determination. Anna was airlifted to the Tromsø University Hospital, where a team of doctors refused to give up on her. After 9 hours of tireless effort, her heart began to beat again. The recovery was just as miraculous. Despite being technically gone for over an hour, Anna suffered no permanent brain damage. Her body's extreme cooling slowed her metabolism to such a degree that it protected her vital organs from oxygen deprivation. After months of rehabilitation, she returned to her life as a doctor, continuing to save lives, a poignant reversal of roles. Rston, trapped for 127 hours. Rston's survival story is one of sheer determination and unimaginable self-reliance. Born on October 27, 1975, in Marion, Ohio, Aaron grew up with a passion for mountaineering and outdoor adventures in the rugged landscapes of the American West. In April 2003, Aaron set out for a solo hiking trip in Blue John Canyon, Utah, a remote and narrow slot canyon known for its breathtaking beauty and dangerous terrain. Always one to push himself to his limits, Aaron had extensive climbing experience, but made one critical mistake that day. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. On April 26th, disaster struck. While navigating the canyon, a massive boulder dislodged, pinning Aaron's right arm against the canyon wall. Trapped in the remote wilderness with no hope of immediate rescue, he faced an unimaginable predicament. Aaron's supplies were minimal. He spent the first 2 days attempting to free his arm, using his tools and leverage. But the boulder, weighing hundreds of kilograms, didn't budge. As dehydration and hypothermia set in, Aaron began rationing his water and food. But by the 5th day, he knew he was running out of time. With no options left and facing certain death, Aaron made the unthinkable decision. He would amputate his own arm to save his life. Using the dull blade of his multi-tool, Aaron methodically cut through the tissue, muscle, and tendons of his trapped arm. When he reached the bone, he used torque to break it, completing the amputation after hours of grueling effort. Bleeding but alive, Aaron rappelled 20 meters down a rock wall and hiked 11 kilometers through the desert before being discovered by a family of hikers. Rescuers quickly airlifted him to safety. Despite the trauma, Aaron's survival became a symbol of human resilience. He later wrote a memoir, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, which inspired the Oscar-nominated film 127 Hours. Aaron continues to climb mountains and give motivational speeches, proving that even in the direst circumstances, the human spirit can endure. Julian Coppepa, 10 Days in the Amazon. Julian Coppepa's story is one of remarkable endurance, resilience, and survival in the face of the impossible. Born on October 10, 1954, in Lima, Peru, Julian was the daughter of 2 German biologists. Her parents' careers led her to grow up in the Peruvian rainforest, where she developed an unusual familiarity with its flora and fauna, knowledge that would later save her life. On December 24, 1971, 17-year-old Julian and her mother boarded Lanza Flight 508 in Lima. They were traveling to Pucallpa, a city deep in the Amazon. The flight, however, turned into a nightmare when the plane flew into a violent thunderstorm. Lightning struck the aircraft, causing it to break apart mid-air at an altitude of 3,200 meters. Still strapped to her seat, Julian was ejected from the plane and plummeted into the dense jungle below. Amazingly, she survived the fall with a broken collarbone, deep lacerations, and a swollen eye. Her survival was due in part to the cushioning effect of the dense foliage below and the attached row of seats, which likely absorbed much of the impact. When Julian regained consciousness, she was alone in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, wearing only a dress and one shoe. The other 91 passengers and crew members had perished. Drawing on her parents' teachings and her own experiences in the rainforest, Julian began her grueling trek to safety. She followed streams, knowing they would eventually lead to larger bodies of water and human settlements. Along the way, she battled hunger, exhaustion, and swarms of insects. Despite the harsh conditions, she pressed on for 11 days. On the 10th day, Julian came across a small boat near a riverbank. Recognizing it as a sign of human presence, she waited for the owners to return. The next day, local loggers discovered her, astonished to find the girl who had emerged from the jungle alive. They treated her wounds and took her to safety. Julian's story captivated the world, not just because of her survival, but also because of the unimaginable hardships she endured. She went on to study biology like her parents, and later wrote a memoir, When I Fell from the Sky. Joe Simpson, Touching the Void. Joe Simpson's survival story is one of raw endurance and an unrelenting will to live. Born on August 13, 1960, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Simpson grew up in England, where he developed a passion for mountaineering. By his 20s, he had become an accomplished climber, seeking out some of the most challenging peaks in the world. In 1985, Simpson and his climbing partner, Simon Yates, set out to scale the previously unclimbed west face of Ciula Grande, a 6,344-meter peak in the Andes. The climb was technically demanding, with sheer ice walls and unpredictable weather. Against the odds, the duo reached the summit, but their real challenge began on the descent. A storm swept through the mountain, and Simpson slipped, shattering his right leg and driving his tibia through his knee joint, a catastrophic injury that made climbing down nearly impossible. Yates did everything he could to help his injured partner, lowering him down the mountain in painstaking stages using a rope. But disaster struck when Simpson was lowered over a hidden crevasse and left dangling in midair. Yates, unable to see or communicate with Simpson, and fearing they would both fall, made the agonizing decision to cut the rope, sending Simpson plummeting into the crevasse. Incredibly, Simpson survived the fall, landing on an ice shelf deep inside the crevasse. Alone, injured, and presumed dead, he faced a seemingly hopeless situation. Yet, refusing to give up, Simpson crawled out of the crevasse and began a grueling descent down the mountain. With no food or water and his legs shattered, he dragged himself across glaciers, jagged rocks, and sheer slopes over the next 3 days. Simpson finally reached the base camp just hours before Yates planned to leave. His survival defied all logic, earning him worldwide recognition as a symbol of resilience and grit. Simpson later recounted his ordeal in his memoir, Touching the Void, which was adapted into an award-winning documentary. Today, he continues to climb, write, and inspire others with his incredible story of survival against impossible odds. Poon Lim, 133 days adrift at sea. Born on March 8, 1918, in Hainan, China, Poon Lim grew up in a family of fishermen. His seafaring skills would prove invaluable when he found himself thrust into one of the most harrowing survival stories ever recorded. In 1942, during World War II, Poon was working as a steward aboard the British merchant ship SS Ben Lomond. The vessel was en route from Cape Town to Suriname when it was torpedoed by a German U-boat in the South Atlantic, about 600 kilometers off the coast of Brazil. The ship sank rapidly, and Poon was one of the few who managed to grab a life jacket and escape. He was the only one to survive the initial disaster. Adrift in the vast Atlantic Ocean, Poon clung to a wooden life raft equipped with minimal supplies, a few tins of biscuits, a small container of water, some chocolate, sugar cubes, and flares. These rations were meant to last a few days at most, but rescue did not come. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. To survive, Poon relied on his ingenuity and resilience. He fashioned a fishing line using the wires from the raft's flashlight and used nails to create makeshift hooks. He caught fish in rainwater to sustain himself. When rain was scarce, he devised a way to distill seawater using the sun. He also captured seabirds, drinking their blood to stave off dehydration and using their flesh as bait for fish. Poon faced constant threats. Sharks circled his raft, and the relentless sun burned his skin. He encountered passing ships, but was repeatedly ignored, likely due to fears of wartime sabotage. Despite his worsening physical condition, he refused to give up. After an astonishing 133 days, over 4 months, Poon was finally rescued by Brazilian fishermen. Poon Lim's ordeal earned him global fame. The British King George VI awarded him the British Empire Medal, and his survival inspired researchers studying human endurance. Poon later remarked, "I hope no one will ever have to go through what I did." Rston Okeeen, stuck in a sunken ship. Rston Okeeen was born in Nigeria. He was working as the cook aboard the tugboat Jascon 4 when his life took a dramatic and harrowing turn. On May 26, 2013, the Jascon 4 was stabilizing an oil tanker off the coast of Nigeria when a sudden ocean swell capsized the vessel. Within minutes, the tugboat sank to the seabed, about 30 meters below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. Of the 12 crew members on board, all were presumed gone, except for Rston, who found himself in a small air pocket inside the ship's wreckage. Trapped in pitch darkness, surrounded by freezing water, Rston faced a seemingly impossible situation. With no food, minimal oxygen, and the knowledge that rescue was unlikely, survival seemed beyond reach. Yet, he clung to life. For over 2 days, Rston endured the suffocating conditions, his body growing colder and weaker by the hour. He later described hearing the sounds of sea creatures scavenging on the remains of his shipmates, a chilling reminder of the stakes he faced. Against all odds, a rescue team of divers sent to recover bodies from the wreckage stumbled upon the living miracle. When one of the divers reached the compartment where Rston was trapped, he was shocked to see a hand reach out from the dark. At first, the diver assumed it was another corpse until the hand grabbed him. Rston was alive. The rescue required careful planning, as a sudden ascent could have caused fatal decompression sickness. The team used a diving bell to safely bring Rston to the surface. Despite his ordeal, Rston suffered only minor injuries and made a full recovery. Roy Sullivan, surviving 7 lightning strikes. Roy Sullivan's story isn't about surviving the impossible once. It's about doing it 7 times. Born on February 7, 1912, in Greene County, Virginia, Sullivan spent much of his life surrounded by the rugged beauty of Shenandoah National Park, where he worked as a park ranger. Little did he know that his job would lead to a record-breaking and almost unbelievable series of encounters with lightning. Sullivan was struck by lightning 7 separate times between 1942 and 1977. The first strike occurred while he was in a fire lookout tower, with lightning jumping through the window and burning his leg. Decades later, he was hit while driving his truck, burning his eyebrows and eyelashes. A year after that, in 1970, he was struck in his yard, setting his shoulder on fire. The strikes continued with unnerving frequency. In 1972, lightning struck him while he was on patrol, igniting his hair for the second time. By then, Sullivan carried a bucket of water in his truck just in case. 3 more strikes followed, one in 1973, another in 1976 while hiking, and the last in 1977 while fishing, which burned his chest and stomach. Despite these repeated brushes with death, Sullivan survived each strike with injuries ranging from burns to hearing loss. Sullivan's uncanny ability to attract lightning earned him the nickname the Human Lightning Rod and a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. Though he lived in fear of storms, often going out of his way to avoid them, he continued working in nature until his retirement. Roy Sullivan passed away in 1983, but his story remains one of the most astonishing tales of human resilience, a reminder of the strange ways life can test us. Maro Prosperi, 9 days in the Sahara Desert. Maro Prosperi's story of survival is a harrowing account of human determination, resourcefulness, and endurance. Born in Italy in 1955, Prosperi was a dedicated endurance athlete and former police officer with a passion for testing his limits. But in 1994, during the Marathon des Sables, a grueling 251-kilometer ultramarathon across the Sahara Desert, he found himself in a fight for his life. The race, known as one of the toughest on Earth, pushes participants to endure extreme heat, relentless sand dunes, and limited resources. On the 4th day, a fierce sandstorm struck the desert. Prosperi, determined to press on, lost sight of the course markers and became hopelessly disoriented. The storm lasted 8 hours, and by the time it cleared, Prosperi was miles off course, alone in the vast expanse of the Sahara. With only minimal supplies, Prosperi faced temperatures exceeding 50 degrees and limited water. He rationed what little he had, but the unforgiving desert soon consumed it. Desperate to survive, he began drinking his urine and attempting to extract moisture from dew on the sparse desert plants. Hunger drove him to catch and eat bats that he found in an abandoned Islamic shrine, a testament to his survival instincts and adaptability. As days turned into a week, Prosperi's situation became increasingly dire. At one point, overwhelmed by despair, he attempted to end his life by slashing his wrists. However, the extreme dehydration caused his blood to thicken, preventing him from bleeding out. Instead of giving up, Prosperi resolved to keep going. He walked over 290 kilometers, following his instincts and the movement of the sun, until he was found by a group of nomadic Tuareg people. They gave him water and brought him to a nearby Algerian military camp, where he was finally rescued. Maro Prosperi's ordeal lasted 9 excruciating days. He lost 18 kilograms, suffered severe dehydration, and sustained long-term damage to his liver, but he survived. Prosperi later returned to the Marathon des Sables, proving that even the harshest trials couldn't keep him from pursuing his passion. Frra Selac, the world's luckiest unlucky man. Frra Selac, a Croatian music teacher, is often called the world's luckiest man for surviving a series of bizarre and life-threatening accidents. Born in 1929, Selac's streak of improbable escapes began in 1962, when a train he was riding derailed and plunged into a river. He survived, suffering only a broken arm and hypothermia, while 17 others didn't. A year later, he was on a plane when a malfunction caused the door to blow open. Selac was sucked out of the plane, but landed in a haystack. The crash took the lives of 19 passengers, but he walked away with minor injuries. Over the following years, he survived a bus crash, 2 car fires, a runaway vehicle explosion, and even being hit by a bus. His most famous escape came in 1995, when he swerved his car to avoid a truck and flew off a cliff. He landed in a tree and watched as his car exploded below. In 2003, Selac's luck turned golden when he won $1 million in the lottery. Despite his newfound wealth, he lived modestly, attributing his survival to fate. Frra Selac's story is a testament to resilience and an uncanny ability to beat impossible odds. Hugh Glass, the Revenant. Hugh Glass, a frontiersman and fur trapper of the early 19th century, is remembered as one of history's toughest survivors. Born around 1783 in Pennsylvania, Glass led a life of adventure and danger. His most famous ordeal occurred in 1823 during an expedition into the untamed wilderness of the American frontier. While scouting ahead of his group near the Grand River in present-day South Dakota, Glass startled a grizzly bear and her cubs. The bear attacked viciously, leaving him with a shattered leg, deep lacerations, and exposed ribs. Barely alive, he was left behind by his companions, who assumed he wouldn't survive. One of them even took his gear, leaving Glass with nothing. But Glass wasn't ready to die. Driven by sheer willpower and a thirst for revenge, he began an extraordinary crawl of over 300 kilometers, 200 miles, to the nearest settlement at Fort Kiowa. Despite his injuries, he survived on raw meat from scavenged carcasses, berries, and water. Along the way, he endured infection, wolves, and exhaustion, but refused to give up. When he finally reached the fort, Glass astonished everyone with his survival. While he originally sought vengeance against the men who abandoned him, he eventually forgave them. Glass's ordeal became legendary, symbolizing resilience and grit in the face of impossible odds. His story has inspired books and films, most famously The Revenant, immortalizing him as a figure of frontier toughness and human endurance. And that is all we have for this video. Let us know what you think about these people cheating death in most extraordinary ways, and are there any other examples that we missed? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with all the new content. See you in the next one.